Former Erie County prosecutors are raising questions about the retention of seized property by law enforcement. They say in some cases, individuals waited months for their property, despite never being charged with a crime.
News 4 Investigates has spent months examining 3 local search and seizure cases. Luke Moretti reports.
The issue.
You ask for the property back, they say no.
The expectation.
It's got to be done in a way that passes constitutional muster.
It's a delicate balancing act of crime-solving efforts on one side and due process expectations on the other. You see it as a problem?
No. And each one of these situations involve very serious crimes.
In one case, a mother of 3 had her vehicle seized, searched, and kept for 9 months. Authorities say the woman's ex-boyfriend, the father of one of her children, used the vehicle to commit retail thefts.
We eventually returned it to her when he finally came in and pled guilty.
Michael Kane, acting Erie County District Attorney, tells News 4 Investigates that while the vehicle was registered to the woman, she was not involved in the crimes and never charged. Kane says the vehicle was a key piece of evidence.
Once it was seized and once he was charged and we were prosecuting him, we can't just return it, Luke. If we just give it back because she's hired an attorney and wants the car back, then we're not complying with our discovery obligation.
The idea of holding on to seized property, whether it's a vehicle or a cell phone, has caught the attention of attorney Louis Massari.
So I've had people whose cars are taken or phones are taken and not returned.
Massari is a former Erie County prosecutor who's familiar with these sorts of investigative techniques. He recently brought a civil proceeding to get a man's cell phone back after it was seized by police at the scene of a shooting.
After the shooting, people scattered, and the individual might have had his phone in his hand or something and dropped it because of shots, and everybody runs away.
Massari's client was shot in the leg, but managed to flee the area. The police took the phone as evidence, searched it, copied whatever they could access from the phone, held it for about 4 months, but never charged him with a crime.
It's no more evidence of a crime than the blades of grass it was sitting on top of. There's no proof of anything. There's no indication that this has any probative value, and there's no particularity listed in the warrant.
In the case involving the phone here, there was no person to be searched. The phone was recovered at the scene of a shooting. It was abandoned property. We didn't know who he was. We didn't know that he was involved. And so they seized the evidence at the scene. It wasn't like they went to his house and took it off him.
Attorney Nick Texedo also worked in the Erie County District Attorney's office. He tells News 4 Investigates that he's representing a client in a similar situation.
I practice all over the place. I'd say the phones are a more recent phenomenon, and I'd say it's common everywhere, but it's a little more prevalent here. It can vary by police agency sometimes. And you know, I think some officers are trained just get the phones and we'll deal with it later.
Another case examined by News 4 involves a sexual assault and rape investigation stemming back a year ago. The probe resulted in the indictment of a local man on multiple charges.
They are awful crimes. They're just allegations at this point.
The individual accused of the crimes worked for a local business owner. Subsequently, a pickup truck and van registered to the business owner were seized and searched. The van was eventually returned, but authorities are still holding the pickup truck as evidence.
So the pickup truck was seized pursuant to a search warrant that was signed by a judge, and it is still in the possession of the Buffalo Police Department.
In a phone interview, the business owner tells News 4 Investigates that, quote, "I'm 100% innocent. They're telling me that I'm indirectly involved, but they never brought charges on me." He says the vehicle seizures had an adverse impact, forcing him to close his business. He estimates losing $1 million in revenue because he lacked access to tools and equipment left in the vehicles. However, Acting District Attorney Michael Kane says the registered owner was allowed access to the van.
He was allowed to take the tools and equipment out of it. That's my understanding of this. He was allowed to remove that property and the equipment, and that just the van was seized.
All three cases involve law enforcement seizing property from individuals who were never charged with crimes. And each of them filed civil cases to get their property returned. According to the Erie County District Attorney's Office, law enforcement can seize and hold property as evidence for as long as needed as part of an ongoing criminal investigation and/or pending criminal proceeding.
It's got to be done correctly and principled.
Attorney Louis Massari says constitutional safeguards are in place for a reason.
I think that the U.S. is an amazing place, and we have these rights, and we should use them and exercise them. And people have to be familiar and understand that just because somebody's a police officer and they take your stuff doesn't mean that they get to keep it. There's rights and privileges that attach.
The decisions that we make on whether evidence should be seized, whether it should be held until we can get a search warrant, those are, as I said, those are all really fact-specific situations. And, you know, normally, to be safe, we ask for we ask a judge for a search warrant.
In addition to the time needed to process seized property, defense counsel has a right to inspect, copy, or photograph evidence, according to the district attorney's office. But for individuals who are never charged with a crime, they're caught in the middle, in some cases waiting months to get their property back.
I think a lot of the phones that are being seized should not be being seized in the first place.
But if law enforcement does seize a phone, attorney Nick Texedo believes they should apply for a warrant promptly, get what they need, and give it back.
The police seem to think, okay, well, this person committed a crime, or we think he did, so we get to seize his phone. No. Again, it's got to be more likely than not that that phone is going to contain evidence of that crime for which you have probable cause. And some crimes are just aren't amenable to that.
If we don't have the right to hold someone's property, we shouldn't be holding it, whether it's a phone or an automobile, and we wouldn't be holding it.
Based on the number of inquiries over the past year, attorney Louis Massari says that he plans to devote more of his practice to property retrievals. Luke Moretti, News 4.